Hello, Archie wanted me to show you his birthday present. So he got a Posey jersey, Buster Posey, the catcher. So he turned 10 a couple weeks ago. So I doubt he's going to stay here, but we'll have him sit with us for a little bit to read, but he's being really antsy. Chapter 31, Maximum Chaos. Lights winked on as twilight deepened. Floodlights illuminated the grand facade of the museum. The first limousine arrived, and a couple in formal wear headed up the wide stairs. Flashbulbs popped for a second, then stopped. The woman in the flowered gown dropped her fake smile, and looked disappointed. March kept his eyes on the photographers. That would be one way for Oscar Ford to sneak in, or he and Jules could already have hidden themselves somewhere in the museum. Jules could be inside right now, her nerves pulled as taut as his. He touched the moonstone in his pocket. It made him feel closer to Elfie. If only you could absorb steel-trapped nerves and cool daring through a rock. The limousines were now a long line of waiting cars. Bye-bye, Archie. March nudged Darius as a yellow school bus was pulled up and a bunch of kids spilled out, dressed in black pants and white shirts. Them? Darius asked. Wait for the moment of maximum chaos. Not yet, March said. 5 choral groups are coming. Somebody is always late. The later we go, the more pressure the people who run this thing are under. That's when the things get overlooked. Now he's decided to sit here. You see him? All right, so I'll sit by this fool. I'm sure he'll get up in 10 seconds, but that's okay. The trickle of party-goers turned into a full-blast faucet of tuxedos. There's Gabby up on top of the couch. And bright spring gowns. Skinny, long-necked women teetered out of limousines, posed, and slowly ascended the steps. One choral group after another arrived. March counted them off on his fingers. A red-haired woman in a yellow and pink gown emerged from a limousine. She faced the photographers for long moments, allowing them to take hundreds of shots in an explosion of light and shutter noise. Something big gleamed from the neckline of her dress. Dolores Leon, Izzy said. And her necklace, March said. A few straggling partygoers hurried from limousines. A black van made an illegal U-turn and bumped to a halt just a few feet from where they stood waiting. A nervous-looking woman jumped out and shouted, "Come on, get a move on, we're late." This is us, March said. His mouth felt dry. Students tumbled out of the van. The woman danced alongside the group, hurrying them forward. March looked at Darius and Izzy. Darius's gaze was glassy with fear. Now or never, March said. Darius gave a quick glance at Izzy. She nodded. Go, they whispered together. March ran forward and jogged alongside the frantic woman. You late too? We're from Huntington Chumley, Bedford Prep. Traffic, she panted. Darius and Izzy dashed forward and attached themselves to the group as they ran toward a side door. An anxious young woman in a black dress peered out at them. Bedford Prep, the woman said, breathing hard. You are super late, the young woman said, frowning. Traffic! They're starting in 10 minutes. Follow me. And just like that, they were in. March and Darius and Izzy followed the group down a dingy corridor and through the winding back corridors of the museum. They slipped into Milstein Hall from a back door marked no admittance. March made a note of where it was and saw that you didn't need a key. Waiters were using it to run food to the tables. Stand on the risers, the young woman whispered, even though the noise from the crowd was a steady low buzz. The museum director will introduce you. You'll sing your number and then remain on the stage while your benefactor, Mrs. Leon, presents the necklace and the director makes a short speech. After that, the lights will go down, entrees will be served, and you'll exit out the same door. March joined the others on the risers. He scanned the crowd anxiously. He looked carefully at each waiter and waitress. No sign of Oscar or Jules. That would be the easiest way to get up close to Dolores Leon, he supposed, though he wondered how Jules would pass for a server. She looked older than 12, but not that much older. This might be a good time to mention I can't sing, Darius whispered. Just mouth the words, March said. But what are we singing? I hate this, Izzy said. The director of the museum went to the microphone. She welcomed the crowd and went through a list of full of people to thank. The crowd applauded politely. March's gaze roamed the crowd. Lost my place. If Jules was out there, what was she thinking? Elfie suddenly loomed in his head, his hand fluttering, saying, Fine, Jules. How would his old man feel if he knew his kids were now enemies, pitted against each other? March pushed the uncomfortable thought away. Jules had been the one to take off. She'd started this, and he was going to win it. There we go. Chapter 32, The Widow's Knot. The director introduced Dolores Leon. The big necklace gleamed under the lights. And now, thanks to the generosity of Mrs. Leon, so many school children in New York have found their voices. In her honor, they will sing her favorite song, My Heart Belongs to Daddy. The choral director stood in front of them. He raised his hands and then brought them down. Can you hear the two of them running around? That's Henry and Nori. March kept his gaze on Dolores Leon, who was standing off to the side, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief while she watched the singers. When she turned her head, he studied the intricate clasp. Impossible to undo it quickly. Had to wait until she removed it herself. Dad, 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 dad. March kept his mouth moving, but he didn't know the words. Most people in the crowd were smiling, some of them swaying a bit with the tune. Hey, we're rock stars, Darius said to him under his breath. The last note faded. Dolores Leon wiped away her last tear. She approached the microphone. Thank you, children. That was beautiful. I'm so touched. When children raise their voices in song, we hear the angels, don't we? Children are my passion. Children and Jules. That's Henry and Nori tearing around on the floors. She paused for the laughter. March noticed two security guards move closer. And to have both of my passions come together in one evening makes for a beautiful experience. Tonight, I'm loaning my favorite necklace, the Widow's Knot, to the museum's gem folklore exhibition. She reached up. Henry comes over here to pant a little bit. And now he really made me lose my spot. High above them. She reached up to unclasp the necklace. The director moved forward, smiling to help her. Dolores Leon held out the necklace, glittering in the white spotlight. Izzy fainted. Give her some air, Darius shouted. March dropped through the risers and scrambled as fast as he could through the maze of feet. Before he could reach Dolores Leon, the spotlight moved and he peered through the steps and followed the light, up to the shadowy heights of the ceiling. High above them, a girl sat on top of the whale. She wore a spangled mask and was dressed all in black. She stood on the whale's back, and the room went silent. Everyone stared at the tiny figure on the giant blue whale over their heads. Jules. She leaped off the whale straight in midair. A collective gasp sucked the air out of the room. She had what looked like two silk ribbons in her hands. March knew they were strong and flexible. He saw out of the corner of his eye that the director was confused. Dolores Leon was looking up, smiling, as though they were a delightful gift. The rest of the crowd thought it was part of the prearranged show, and they burst into applause as Jules landed in the swing created by the two pieces of fabric, then executed a dizzying spin. Little white lights were twined through her costume and in her hair. The lights went out. All anyone could see was the whirling lights overhead as Jules spun. Distraction is the first rule of an open-air grab. This was it. This was the strike. Heart pounding. March rolled out of the end of the risers and ran towards Dolores. You see Gabby peeking? He had to get there before Oscar. A third security guard appeared. He slipped a pair of glasses out of his pocket and put them on. Infrared lenses. It was Oscar Ford, and he was moving fast. March threw himself forward at Dolores. He muttered an apology, pretending to trip, and reached for the hand holding the necklace. It was empty. Jules couldn't have swiped it. She was still up there. He could see the spinning lights, and Oscar was still a few paces away. Distraction. March looked closer. Jules hadn't been twirling at all. There was no one on the swing. My necklace is gone! Dolores screamed. Jules had stolen the necklace right out from under him. Turn on the lights, the director yelled into the microphone. March looked around frantically. He saw a slender column of light as the door marked no admittance was cracked. Close the exits, the director shouted, but her voice was lost in the noise of the crowd. March leaped off the stage and charged toward the door after Jules. To be continued tomorrow in this house of chaos.